This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, and faith-focused feature stories with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
Iran fights back. Good afternoon. Welcome aboard. The new supreme ruler issuing his first statement today on the 13th day of Operation Epic Fury.
I'd like to assure you that revenge will be taken for all the martyrs.
Correspondent Ramy Inocencio.
He said that all U.S. bases should immediately be closed in the region, and he says that those bases will be attacked, as we have been seeing over the past now 13 days of this war. The Supreme Leader also says that the closure of the Strait of Hormuz should be continued as a tool to pressure the enemy.
The new Ayatollah hasn't been seen since he was chosen to replace his father, who was killed in the opening minutes of the war. Meantime, Tehran's largest terror proxy, Hezbollah, has launched its largest attack since the war began on Israel. Over 100 rockets fired overnight from southern Lebanon into northern Israel. This while Iran continues to target oil tankers in the Persian Gulf. The BBC's Barbara Platt-Usher.
The Gulf is burning, so to speak.
NBC's Richard Engel gets more reaction from Iran.
A military spokesman saying, "We will never allow a single liter of oil to pass through the Strait of Hormuz for the benefit of the United States, the Zionist regime, or their partners." Iran's strategy is now clear: a war on global trade. So the more Iran suffers, the more everyone else will too.
President Trump insists the Strait of Hormuz will be safe for shipping despite the barrage of rocket fire.
I figured we'd be hit a little bit, but we were hit probably less than I thought, and we'll be back on track in a pretty short while.
Ophir Falk is a spokesperson for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
We are degrading their capabilities almost back to the Stone Age. And pretty soon now, we're going to pass that torch to the Iranian people, and they don't need to seize the moment.
The war in Iran's created instability in global oil markets, and last night, the Trump administration took action to drive down pumped up gas prices. The president ordered the release of 172 million barrels of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Energy expert Clayton Sable.
The question is, how does the release on a daily average basis square up to the size of the disruption, which is somewhere between 15 and 20 million barrels per day?
CBS News business analyst Kelly O'Grady.
The idea is if you put more supply of oil into the market, you're going to see prices go down. But they didn't yesterday. And the reason why is that this release was already baked into the price of oil.
She says the amount of oil being released from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve only amounts to about a 25-day supply. The price at the pump now $3.60 a gallon on average nationwide. It's $3.52 in New York, $3.66 in Pennsylvania. An FBI bulletin hints that Iran may be planning to attack California, possibly during this weekend's Oscars ceremony, as retaliation for the war. Officials in California are downplaying the threat, but, says Governor Gavin Newsom,
the questions are in abundance at the moment about what can happen next.
The FBI bulletin suggested Iran intended to launch unmanned drones in a surprise attack on unspecified targets. Authorities in California say they are not aware of any imminent threat, but remain vigilant nonetheless. The cleanup continues from killer tornadoes Tuesday night in Indiana. This woman survived a twister that touched down in Madison County.
A little scary. The whole place was rocking and things fell off the counters and the walls. I opened the door and all I heard was whir, 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 and everything was blowing.
A couple in their 80s was killed in their home by one of over 20 tornadoes that struck the Midwest, and there's more bad weather last night, as we hear from NBC's Maggie Vespa.
Tornadoes touching down in Arkansas and Louisiana, flattening trees and power lines, along with storms in the Northeast and the hard-hit Midwest. The region still recovering after 21 reported tornadoes swept through on Tuesday. Entire neighborhoods reduced to rubble in a matter of minutes.
I just feel it in my bones. It was like
in your bones.
Yeah, I just wanted to hold on to my mom. It was scary.
Tornadoes also causing widespread damage in Kankakee, Illinois.
It sounded like our house was exploding. It was hitting it so hard.
The eerie aftermath, frightening for those seeing the damage for the first time.
Gives you the chills to think that somebody could have survived it.
In Indiana alone, more than 100 homes were damaged or destroyed by Tuesday night's tornadoes. The Senate confirmation hearing for Markwayne Mullin to become the next Secretary of Homeland Security is set for next Wednesday. The former MMA fighter and current U.S. Senator from Oklahoma tapped to succeed Kristi Noem, who was fired last week by the White House. Noem is the first cabinet secretary to be dismissed in the president's second term. The lines are getting longer at the airports as more TSA screeners call in sick. They're calling in sick because they're not getting paid, and they're not getting paid because of the partial government shutdown. TSA Union Chief Neil Gussman calling on Congress to do its job.
This is the dereliction of duty of people who are elected, both in the administration and in Congress. We're doing our job. We're coming in and we're putting ourselves at risk. We're screening passengers. We're looking for bombs and bags, and we're not getting paid.
The fiscal impasse has led to flight delays at airports nationwide. Some passengers waiting up to 5 hours to board a flight. Tourists are flocking to Death Valley National Park in California to take in a rare phenomenon known as a super bloom. Thousands of long dormant flowers have popped up through the desert soil, transforming the barren landscape into carpets of gold. The bloom is the result of steady rain this past fall and winter. Experts say it won't last long, though, so if you want to check it out, get there while the getting's good. Proof of life in Death Valley. How about that? Still to come on the Noon Report, a Thursday edition. Church security, youth homelessness, and preventing car break-ins.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Williams. Well, the thaw is through. The chill is back. Your complete forecast is up in 10 minutes.
All right, Kevin, we'll see you then. Let's check the stories making news where you live across New York and Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman is calling on Israel to assassinate Iran's new Ayatollah. The Democratic lawmaker tells News Nation the world is better off without the Ayatollah Khomeini in it, and his son, his successor, should die too. Pennsylvania's newly formed Anti-Human Trafficking Caucus meeting for the first time today in Harrisburg. Northern Tier Republican Representative Clint Owlett.
This is bipartisan and it's bicameral. So it has members of the House and the Senate and Republicans and Democrats coming together to try to identify some very specific pieces of legislation that we can work on together.
Owlett says it behooves moms and dads to be engaged in their kids' lives now more than ever. He says sex trafficking is not done today like it was just a few years ago. Today's predators, he says, are lurking mostly online.
This issue is not a Republican issue. This is not a Democrat issue. This is not a suburban, urban, or rural issue. This is a Pennsylvania issue.
The Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency launched a new statewide website this year aimed at preventing human trafficking. There's a renewed push to protect churches in New York. Lawmakers joining activists yesterday at the state capitol to call for the creation of so-called buffer zones. The proposal prohibits demonstrations within 25 feet of a house of worship. Buffalo homeowners are bracing for a tax hike. That story new at noon from Family Life's Dee Haley.
Buffalo Mayor Sean Ryan expects taxes for city homeowners to increase by about $30 per month next year. Next year's city budget has an anticipated deficit of up to $100 million. According to Ryan, the city has been operating on an unrealistic budget. New York State stepped up this year to help fill the gap, but tax increases are reportedly inevitable for next year. While current budget deficit projections are reportedly hovering around $30 million, that deficit assumes the sale of city-owned parking ramps and money promised in the New York State Gaming Compact with the Seneca Nation. Dee Haley, Family Life News.
Thank you, Dee. New York's Attorney General Letitia James is suing the Trump White House over how it collects data from colleges and universities so it can enforce its anti-DEI policy. Education Secretary Linda McMahon wants 7 years of student data to ensure that schools are not still using diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. The White House mandate requires institutions of higher learning to report student test scores, GPAs, and financial aid details based on race and sex. The Attorney General argues this data represents an undue burden on colleges and universities. The presidents of Penn State, Temple, Pitt, and Lincoln all testified before a House hearing Wednesday in Harrisburg about the need for more state assistance. Last year, the Big Four were awarded more than $600 million from Pennsylvania. Representative Chad Reichert says, enough already.
But it almost feels like we're the ATM, right? Like, they come to us, they get their cash, and then they go and do whatever they want.
He notes that Penn State charges $20,000 a year for tuition for in-state students, and that's tops in the Big Ten. All 4 university presidents argued yesterday that state money does save money for Pennsylvania students in the long run. Car break-ins are commonplace this time of year, unfortunately. David Marcucci with the Monroe County, New York Sheriff's Department says it's this kind of thievery that can cause a lot of headache for motorists.
We're taking reports for wallets being missing, key fobs for the push-start vehicles that are in the vehicles. We've had firearms, book bags with laptop computers. Those are all high-value items that it's very difficult for us to locate those items afterwards when they're stolen.
Marcucci tells WROC in Rochester, locking your vehicle and removing valuables from it is a must nowadays, no matter how safe an area you think you live in. He adds that residents should contact law enforcement whenever they notice something suspicious.
I can't tell you how many times I've heard, especially when I worked overnights, people would tell us in the morning, I heard something last night, I saw something last night, but I didn't want to call and bother you. And it's like, we're 24/7. I think it's nice, right, that people are trying to be conscious, but really you're not bothering us. That's what we're here for.
The sheriff's deputy says home security cameras and good outdoor lighting can also help deter crime. A man is dead, 5 families displaced following a fire at an apartment building in North Tonawanda, New York. Fire crews encountered heavy smoke on the second floor of that building where they found the 62-year-old victim in the apartment's kitchen. The Red Cross is assisting all of those impacted by this deadly fire. Hospitals are taking extra precaution as measles cases rise in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Details on that from Family Life's Brian Query.
Doctors with Penn State Health say patients are now being asked whether they visited Lancaster County within the past 30 days. The screening question was added after a measles outbreak in the county, which accounts for 8 of the state's 12 reported cases. Physicians say anyone who has traveled there may be asked about symptoms like fever, rash, eye irritation, or lung infection. Doctors will also check vaccination history. Health officials say all the reported cases involve unvaccinated individuals, and they continue urging residents to get the MMR vaccine, which is about 97% effective against measles. Brian Query, Family Life News.
Thanks, Brian. A Carlisle, Pennsylvania man is facing 10 years in prison for carving his initials into a monument at Gettysburg National Military Park.
Some major vandalism had occurred. By the looks of it, it had been with a pocket knife.
Park spokesman Jason Martz cannot understand why anyone would want to desecrate anything at Gettysburg.
What it comes down to is defacing the memory of those who fought and died, and the memory of those who lived, to then memorialize those who did fight and die here.
Martz says 50,000 soldiers died at Gettysburg during the Civil War.
And this is truly sacred ground. This is an entire space dedicated to those who fought and died here. And so this is really the last place that I would think that anyone would take time to desecrate in any way, shape, or form.
Police say 36-year-old Lucas Reisinger vandalized a 132-year-old monument that memorialized the sacrifices of New York soldiers during the Battle of Little Round Top. That battle helped turn the tide of the war in the summer of 1863. Homelessness continues to be a major problem in New York. The numbers have doubled the past 2 years. Many school districts are now taking action to help students impacted by homelessness. Isaiah Santiago's commissioner of the Rochester City School Board.
Well, there's ways that those things could be fixed and bettered, but the school district has required responsibilities when it comes to young people who are homeless. But I do see a lack of services for our 18 and up young people.
Santiago says in Rochester alone, over 1,000 students face housing instability every year. In fact, more than 500 in the district are homeless right now. And today is National Girl Scout Day. It is to mark the first Girl Scout troop meeting. It happened on this day back in the year 1912.
Since then, more than 50 million girls and adult volunteers have participated in the program that builds courage, confidence, and character. The girls bond over camping and collaborate on community programs, all with purpose and a smile. Taylor Swift, Mariah Carey, Queen Elizabeth II, even Michelle Obama were all Girl Scouts. And don't forget, it's Girl Scout Cookie Time, which is a huge supporter of Scout activities. I'm Bree Tennis.
Love those Girl Scout cookies. Thank you, Bree. Let's check sports next. Pool play in the World Baseball Classic wrapped up yesterday. Italy beat Mexico to clinch the top seed in Pool B. They'll play Puerto Rico in the next round. The win also clinched a spot for Team USA in the quarterfinals. The Americans take on Canada tomorrow. Lehigh is going dancing. The Mountain Hawks got their ticket punched to the postseason tournament by winning the Patriot League last night. It is the first time since 2012 that Lehigh has made it into the March Madness. That was the year, by the way, that Lehigh shocked the world in the men's tournament by beating Mighty Duke. The Buffalo Bills are bringing in a divisional rival's former edge rusher. The team signed 29-year-old Bradley Chubb from the Dolphins to a 3-year deal. Chubb was released by Miami despite tallying a team high 8.5 sacks this past season. And the Buffalo Sabres return to home ice tonight as they look to extend their winning streak to 9 games. Can they do it? Buffalo hosting the Washington Capitals. The Sabres currently leading the Atlantic Division. The puck drops at 7 p.m. at the KeyBank Center. Steve Tisch is giving up co-ownership of the New York Giants. It's because of his ties to the late child trafficker, Jeffrey Epstein.
Tisch is asking the NFL to allow him to transfer his 23% stake in Big Blue to his children. This comes after the 77-year-old was outed for asking the late sex offender about a working girl in what the New York Post says was a series of emails about women. Forbes recently estimated that the Giants are worth more than $10 billion. I'm Sarah Lee Kessler.
Thank you, Sarah. Still to come on the Noon Report. Trump taps oil reserves, a pill to treat sleep apnea, and faith under fire at school. But first, weather with Kevin Williams.
Here is your family life forecast for this afternoon. Blustery and chilly, variably cloudy skies, sunny breaks, and some snow flurries around. Temperatures holding nearly steady at current values. And cold tonight, an evening flurry, partly cloudy, low temps 20s. Tomorrow, cloudy, period of snow, then mixed rain and snow showers in the afternoon, turns breezy, highs in the 40s. Blustery on Saturday, some morning flurries, clouds break for some sunshine. High temperatures Saturday, 30s and lower 40s.
All right, thank you very much, Kevin Williams. This is the Noon Report on Family Life. I'm your host, Bob Price. Here's what's happening Thursday, the 12th of March. The Trump administration tapping into the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to help drive down gas prices as the war with Iran continues. The U.S. is releasing 172 million barrels of oil to help bring stability to the global oil markets. Energy Secretary Chris Wright.
This is to tide the world world over while these flows are restricted by Iran, but ultimately the United States military will prevail. We will end their ability to impede traffic through the Straits of Hormuz, and ships will flow again.
Several oil tankers destroyed in the Persian Gulf overnight after being hit by small boats from Iran packed with explosives. Attacks happened off the coast of Iraq and Bahrain. NBC's Richard Engel.
Hezbollah and Iran are now coordinating their attacks, with Hezbollah intensifying its strikes on Israel and Iran trying to disrupt global trade.
Iran's largest terror proxy launched its biggest attack since the war began last night on Israel. Trey Yingst with Fox News has the latest from Tel Aviv.
More than 100 rockets were launched over the border overnight, triggering sirens across northern Israel. This was a significant attack, but led to just a few injuries on the ground.
Former Trump National Security Advisor KT McFarland says most of our objectives have been accomplished in Iran after 13 days of war.
The initial objectives have been met. No nukes, no missiles, no proxies endangering the Middle East. Now, what we've got to do is do the next tier of targets, which is open the Strait of Hormuz, making sure the oil flows, and it depends on President Trump. He could leave tomorrow and say, I've committed the job. I'll be back in a couple of years as Iran rebuilds its military, its nuclear sites, and we'll mow the grass again. But I think President Trump has made the decision he wants to deal with it once and for all.
President Trump telling reporters last night he's confident defeat is inevitable for the Iranians and Operation Epic Fury is nearly over.
Most people say it's already been won. It's just a question of when. When do we stop?
Meantime, in California, officials there are on the lookout for any potential drone attacks by Iran as the war overseas hits close to home.
There was a bulletin issued a week ago, but it was not released publicly at first, which says Iran allegedly aspired to conduct a surprise attack using unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, from an unidentified vessel off the coast of the U.S., specifically against unspecified targets in California.
Correspondent Mark Meredith says authorities in California are not aware of any imminent threat, but remain vigilant nonetheless. The partial government shutdown almost a month old, and TSA workers are struggling to get by without a paycheck. Union leader Neil Gossman was at a food drive yesterday at the Minneapolis-St. Paul airport.
Instead of a paycheck, I'm getting cornflakes. That's great. I really appreciate Veep doing this. This is not a way to treat a federal employee. We're trying to keep people safe.
TSA sickouts are causing hours-long delays for airline passengers. Democrats are refusing to fund the Department of Homeland Security because of immigration enforcement efforts. The Democratic National Committee is suing the Trump White House over the possibility that ICE agents may be deployed this fall to polling stations.
They're arguing over the ICE agents and using this as a platform to have a broader debate over whether there should be any federal agents anywhere, and both parties want in on this fight. Democrats want to argue this is voter suppression by another name, that it chills, it intimidates voters. Republicans will use this to say, why are you so scared of ICE agents at the polls? Are there unlawful people voting in elections? This is a battle we're going to have on lots of different fronts between now and November.
CBS's Scott McFarland. The cleanup continues after killer tornadoes in the Midwest this week. The damage especially bad in Indiana and Illinois.
The National Weather Service says an EF1 twister hit the Wheatfield, Indiana area, and another in Aroma Park, Illinois, was an EF3 with peak winds near 150 miles per hour. Newton County, Indiana Sheriff says Ed and Arlene Kozlowski, both in their 80s, died in their Lake Village home. Their son-in-law, Steve Rayfeld.
They are wonderful, just really wonderful human beings.
Officials say a 6-inch diameter hailstone that fell in Kankakee may have set a new Illinois record. Jennifer Kuiper, Chicago.
If you own a Ford or GM, listen up. There's a recall you should know about.
General Motors recalling some 12,000 Chevy Silverado and GMC Sierra 3500 pickups from the 2025 and 26 model years over a faulty rear fuel pump that can fail to transfer fuel properly, potentially causing a loss of power. Ford is recalling almost 36,000 2025 and 26 Explorer SUVs due to a faulty software system that moves headlights when driving around curves. Separately, Ford is recalling almost 48,000 vehicles for a defective exhaust valve. that could cause vehicles to lose power. That recall includes 2025 Broncos, Mustangs, and Ranger pickups, as well as the Lincoln Corsair and Nautilus.
Correspondent Jeff Manasso. And scientists may have discovered a pill that treats sleep apnea. German researchers found the drug reduces breathing interruptions in people with moderate to severe sleep apnea. Those who took the pill had up to 47% improved oxygen levels and fewer pauses in their breathing during sleep. The findings could pave the way for a medication-based alternative to CPAP machines. You're tuned in to the Noon Report, a Thursday edition on Family Life.
This is Faith Under Fire. We take you straight to the front lines of religious battlegrounds. I'm your host, Sarah Harnish. With me today, Focus on the Family's issues analyst, Jeff Johnston. The United States Supreme Court struck a blow against the California Department of Education and schools that hide information about a child's sexual identity. Jeff, this is a huge victory for parents' rights. What are the details of the case Mirabelli versus Bonta?
This started around 2016 when the Obama administration told states and school districts that they had to not discriminate against kids because they're transgender and they had to protect their privacy. And then schools started developing transgender policies that told teachers that they couldn't talk to parents about a child's so-called gender identity if the child didn't want them to. There were a couple of teachers in Southern California, and they filed a lawsuit against this, saying, I'm not going to lie to parents about this. I'm not going to use a child's chosen name at school and then their real name when I talk to their parents. Then parents jumped onto the bandwagon as well, so they joined the lawsuit. And the Supreme Court said parents have the right to raise their children according to their values, and states can't interrupt that. They can't jump between parents and children like this. So they ruled that these policies were unconstitutional.
There are dozens of similar cases making their way through the court system right now. What happens to them?
Well, there are at least 1,000 school districts across the country and at least 18,000 schools that have these similar policies. So hopefully some of them will just begin to put these policies on hold and stop schools from lying. We're hopeful that the Supreme Court may pick up one or two of these other cases where a school began to socially transition a child, meaning help the child pick a new name. If it's a girl, help the girl dress as a boy, use boy pronouns for that girl. And there's been dozens of cases where parents have found this out later on, where they've gotten upset about it and they've challenged what the school district has done. So there's a case in Florida that the court is looking at and another one in Massachusetts. And then there's more than 30 across the nation that they could pick up as well. So we're hoping for a full Supreme Court hearing and a ruling in those kinds of cases.
What should parents be watching out for in their own kids' schools around sexual identity? Is there anything that could tip them off that some of this might be happening without their knowledge?
We created a great resource that you can get at Focus on the Family. It's called Equipping Parents for Back to School. We talk about 10 different issues at school, including where schools are pushing gender ideology. It's so important for parents to be involved in their child's school when they go to back to school nights, when they have parent-teacher conferences. If they're seeing transgender flags throughout the school and posters, that's one thing to look for. They can check their school libraries. They should certainly be reading through their children's curriculum to see if those things are being pushed on children. In some states, it's mandatory that in all the social studies classes from kindergarten through 12th grade, schools have to talk about transgender identified people. That's every social studies class in every grade. So parents are going to have to make a decision. Do I want to keep my kid in school? Do I pull them out for these kinds of things? And that can be very difficult because when you're talking about social studies, you're talking about a mandatory subject. But the court ruled last year in a case called Mahmoud that schools can't push ideology that parents' religion does not agree with, that parents' religious freedom trumps the school's right to push LGBT ideology. So parents need to follow these cases, know their rights, and they also need to monitor what's happening in their children's schools very closely.
How do we get to a place where Christianity is equally accepted and religious freedom is equally accepted when there's gay pride flags hanging down hallways?
Well, it's going to be difficult, but parents are going to have to be brave. They're going to have to talk to their children about these issues, and we're going to have to raise a generation that understands some of the basics from Genesis, that God made us male and female, that marriage is between a husband and wife, that sex is designed for marriage. It's not designed for outside of marriage. And then parents are going to have to be brave and speak out at school board meetings. They're going to have to talk to teachers and educators and administrators and ask questions. What is it that we're teaching in this school? I believe we're already beginning to win on the transgender issue. We're seeing a turn where fewer kids are identifying this way, where schools are backing off from teaching it, where there's court decisions. There are folks who went into transgenderism, their bodies were damaged, and then they've come out, and they're filing lawsuits against hospitals and clinics and medical professionals, and they're starting to win some of those cases. In the general public square, most people understand that there's boys and girls, that it's not fair to have boys and girls sports, that it's not right to use powerful drugs, hormones, and surgeries on little children that can sterilize and mutilate their bodies. So those are areas where we're actually winning. 80% of the population is with us.
Learn more at theDailyCitizen.org.
Thank you, Sarah. The name of the program, Faith Under Fire. It comes your way every Thursday during the Noon Report or online anytime at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or FamilyLife.org.
Good afternoon. Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast. Cold front has crossed the area. You can probably tell. This time yesterday, temperatures in much of the area were in the 60s or higher. But readings are substantially lower now, mostly in the 30s. We're anticipating the chill to linger for a while, setting us up for a little wintry precipitation at times as well. For this afternoon, blustery and chilly, variably cloudy skies, sunny breaks, and some snow flurries around. Temperatures holding nearly steady at current values, and cold tonight. An evening flurry, partly cloudy, low temps 20s. Tomorrow, cloudy, period of snow, then mixed rain and snow showers in the afternoon, turns breezy, highs in the 40s. Blustery on Saturday, some morning flurries, clouds break for some sunshine. High temperatures Saturday, 30s and lower 40s.
Thank you, Kevin. Finally at noon, the first food delivery service by drone is coming soon to New Jersey.
Starting on March 18th, the company called Wonder is allowing customers through the Grubhub app the option of drone delivery in a 3-month trial. Customers will have to be within 2.5 miles of Wonder's Greenbrook location to be eligible. This is believed to be the first time drone technology will be used to deliver food in the Garden State. Officials say the food should arrive faster than other methods, with an average time of 4 minutes with the usual delivery fees. In New Jersey, I'm Scott Pringle.
Now that's what I call fast food. Thank you, Scott, and that's our world. The world we live in. Thursday, the 12th of March. I'm Bob Price. Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.